Cammy's 5'5" and 101 pounds in this one. So it makes sense because she's more slender, agile, and with a lot of ass weighing her down as far as gravity is concerned. I don't think she'd be as mobile or like effective of a killer as she is in this film. We don't get too much of Cammy. We only get her in the very beginning. She runs up on a political figure of some sorts and does the infamous little, now infamous, of course, but only brought back now in Street Fighter 6, the finishing move she has, a special that she jumps on top of you, twists your head around, and falls backwards, and just, fatality pretty much. Because as much as Street Fighter likes to stress they don't kill a la Mortal Kombat, that's a fatality right there. There's no way of fucking doing anything. You can get Hadouken, you can get, Dragon Uppercut, you can get all the other shit done to you from everybody else on the roster, but Cammy's the only one that looks like she literally just killed you by twisting your neck almost clean off your head. But yeah, we get Cammy, she's like in and out kind of thing. They do bring her up later as far as getting interrogated because she was brainwashed by Bison to do what she had to do, carry out her duty, and as he says later on too, if she finished her job, then I'm done with her, I don't give a shit what happens to her, basically, and all that, right? You get that first. The first 5 minutes alone of this movie were pretty fucking great. A great, strong way to open with simple yet effective. Sagat, Ryu, their first encounter ever. We finally see why and how Sagat got that massive scar across his chest, basically going one-on-one Ryu. I only realized this after, like, I think, Smash Bros. It's Ryu, not Ryu. So Ryu, dragging up, no, that's Ken. He gives him an uppercut that goes up and across his chest in such a way that he just kind of slices his chest open practically. And not even, like, down, like, through the sternum like you would for surgery, like across, like from the left rib cage to the right titty almost. So basically Sagat's visibly scarred, but also he's gigantic, so Ryu had a lot of ground to cover with that flying uppercut pretty much. And that's how he defeats Sagat, who up until that point was an undefeated Muay Thai champion and somehow quote unquote a national icon of Thailand. Well, maybe he wasn't a bad guy in that case. I think he already had the eye patch, if I remember correctly. So, can you really categorize a guy with an eye patch as a good guy? That is more of a morality question, I guess. But maybe they just loved him because he was so good at Muay Thai, he was undefeated for so long until, the pipsqueak that is Ryu, all respect due, of course, comes through and cleans his clock, basically. And he's defeated. So then he gets corrupted enough to want to have a rematch where he joins up with Shadowlaw or under Bison to eventually get that rematch because he's begging Bison some point later on to, Master, let me get another chance. Let me go at him again. Please, I'll handle it this time. And Bison dismisses him. It's like, you fucked up once. I can't trust you to fuck up twice. Not on my watch, not on my budget. So get the fuck out of here and go sit in the corner on this big, massive flying ship that I use to teleport instantly from one spot to the other. Meanwhile, Bison has the psycho power, which helps him teleport, from here to there in mid-fight. So I believe if he's mentally strong enough to do so, as his form would imply as well, and evil and corrupted as he is, I would think he'd use the psycho power to teleport himself from, like, here to Spain if he wants to, and then Spain to Africa if he feels like it, and then cover the globe in the blink of an eye. And just come back and do it like nothing. Like, hey, I was right here the whole time. What are you talking about? You closed your eyes too hard. You missed out on me the whole time. You're ignoring me. See, that's why you're not paying attention. I'm Bison. So again, the first fight with Sagat and Ryu is cool because it's dark, it's moody, there's thunder, boosh, and all that. Obviously, we get the end result of Ryu defeating Sagat and tearing his chest open pretty much, almost like exposing organs, but just a massive scar was left behind, so it was a pretty deep cut regardless. But there's blood in the first 5 minutes of the Street Fighter animated film. I don't recall, to be honest, unless I watch it again eventually for the review later on this year, if there was any blood in the live action version. I can't remember offhand, so forgive me for that. But blood, 5 minutes in, count me in, absolutely. And it's effective. It's not like super bloody. It's like splurting all over the place. It's like, it makes sense. Like logical blood spill. You hit him with an uppercut all across his chest, so much as slicing him open. You would have to see like at least a little bit of trickling of blood. Why not? So that's the first thing you get. Then after that, like I mentioned, you got the whole cammy part too. But then she's pretty much out the film after that. Then we get introduced to Guile. Well, no, sorry, excuse me. First we get introduced to Chun-Li, who's an Interpol agent. And she's on the mission to track down Bison, see what he's up to, because he's been collabing with fucking Vega, Balrog, and I just said him, Sagat, or Sagat, whatever. To really bring up the Shadowlaw Empire, a terrorist organization, and take over the world. Obviously, that's what every, evil dictator does or ruler does. She's there. She has to get the info, the intel on fucking Guile. Captain Guile of the Air Force, right? Yeah, Air Force. Right. Captain Guile. Guile is an asshole from Jump Street. Or he's got a massive chip on his shoulder, or, Bison did kill his best friend, Charlie. Or was it Nash? Charlie Nash? I forget. It's been a while since I played the Alpha series. But, he's upset about that, so when Chun-Li goes up, the link up with Guile and tell him, hey, I'm from Interpol, we're supposed to work together and shit, he's basically like, who gives a shit, doll face, fuck you, get out of here, don't waste my time unless you give me some of that, snatch, basically. But nah, he don't say all that, but he's really dismissive. He's like, Bison's ass is mine, pause, basically. I'll deal with him, I'll finish him, that's what you want, right? Why would you want him alive to put him in prison if he's so evil and so much of a terrorist and all that shit, right? Why bother keeping him alive? Let's unalive his ass. I'll unalive his ass with a sonic boom and a fucking rising kick, whatever they call it in the game for Guile. So Bison turns out to be a short king, and I'll tell you why, because again, this movie is very loyal, very faithful to the source material, does a great job of that. But it also gives you stats that you wouldn't see otherwise. I don't think they're in the games, but the movie does give you that. So if you're ever curious about heights and weights, Cammy, as I mentioned, is 5'5", 101 pounds, according to the movie. When they're doing the rundown on who's working on the Bison, Vega, Balrog, and Sagat, we get all their sizes, their heights, and all that. And when they introduce Bison, to give him the proper intro, he's walking through his ship. He's got the music playing, which is really fucking 90s sounding, synth heavy and shit. He is the shortest one visibly out of all of them, Vega, Balrog, and Sagat. And it makes you think, holy shit, are they really going with that lore of Sagat being like 7'5"? Imagine that guy, Sagat, 7'5". He's got to be at least a solid 300, maybe 350 pounds of just muscle, and a Muay Thai expert, and undefeated until a tiny pipsqueak, not even 6 feet tall Ryu comes and beats his ass, and now he's out for blood. He wants vengeance. Imagine having to go up against that guy. No thanks whatsoever, I'm good. So that's Sagat, 7'5". Then you got Balrog, who's a criminal boxer. I think they alluded to him killing in the ring, so that's why he's been banned from boxing for good. 6'6". The look and the shape and build of him as he explodes out of his tuxedo later on in the movie when we get his formal introduction. He is listed at 6'6". So imagine a 6'6", big fucking built ass boxer like that, with like hands like hams almost. No thanks either. And then you got the third in line, not so big, but still visibly taller than Bison, with his hat on and all that, and platform lift boots and all that. You got Vega, the one with the mask, with the claw. He's so beautiful, he has to protect his face. He hates ugly things. He kills ugly things and all that. And then, of course, we get his iconic fight with Chun-Li later on in her apartment, with her also barely wearing anything. He's listed as 6'1". Very slender, sleek, still built, cobra back and all that, but he's 6'1". So that makes you think. You got 7'5", you got 6'6", you got 6'1". All of them are towering, like almost a head taller than Bison. So that leads me to deduce that according to the animated movie, Bison is a short king officially, and at most he's probably clocking in at 5'10", and I'm being nice saying that because again, the height difference between him and Vega in the movie is too obvious. So Bison's officially a short king. No wonder he was made to be the bad guy and/or slash a dictator in the making for the Street Fighter franchise. It all makes sense now. That's why he's so fucking evil and started up the Shadowlaw terrorist organization and all that. It all fucking just gels now. Absolutely, I get it. Because then you got in comparison, like I mentioned, Ryu and Ken, they're both only 5'9", so they're also short kings. They're practically built the same, except, you know, Ken is blonde, Ryu's a brunette, similar build, similar strength, similar potential to show, like, untapped strength and endurance and all this shit, too, because that's Bison's whole MO the whole time. He sees Ryu easily dispose of Sagat out in the fucking open field in Malaysia or Thailand or wherever, what's his face, Sagat's from. So he's convinced that his power level's over 3,000 something. He's got to get Ryu, brainwash him, and make him his ultimate, Shadowlaw soldier. So in that, he has his evil, like, dumpy-looking scientist making these, like, what is it, cyborgs? Yeah, monitor cyborgs that all look like Sagat, almost as big as Sagat, but of course half their faces like robotic and Terminator looking and shit, and they're all over he's made so many of them, so absolutely Shadowlaw is somebody who would be a potential employee in the future because goddamn, it looks like they got an unlimited ass budget, and they got these minor cyborgs like everywhere around the world, so that's their job mainly, to find Ryu in this case. But they end up finding Ken later on because the same scientist had one of his cyborgs monitor his ass, and they see, oh, wait a second, this guy fights just like Ryu. He's about the similar size and build of Ryu. He's got the just about give or take potential energy untapped of Ryu, this Ken individual. So why not take Ken instead and brainwash his ass and make him the ultimate Shadowlaw soldier? Controlled via psycho power, of course, as emitted through Bison. So that's the whole point of the movie, basically. They try to track down Ryu, they settle for Ken instead, they brainwash Ken, they torture his ass, naked, of course, because in animated movie, including, brainwashing and, psycho crusher powers and shit, the guy that gets brainwashed has to be naked for some reason. They take off Ken's gi, his iconic red gi, for no good reason but to just, thank God they're not showing animated penis either, but why do they gotta be naked? He could keep his clothes on. They could just strap the helmet on him and just, pump the psycho power into his head and brainwash him and to make him forget that Ryu's his best friend, practically brother and all that shit. That's just me, though, I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. According to the movie, Fei Long, who's one of my favorite characters because, of course, he's based off, rest in peace, Bruce Lee, is an asshole, quote unquote, because he is I guess, not Hollywood. It's over in China, I think it's implied. He's like a Chinese movie star, but he's not on set. He's running off to go see like the underground illegal fights going on nearby because he wants to fight to improve himself. He's not just a pretty boy on a big screen. He can fucking handle anybody if he has to do so. So the director is like not surprised. He's like, of course he's not here. He's an asshole. And that's our introduction to Fei Long, who, fun fact, and the only real fun fact worth sharing about this thing that stood out to me at least, like a sore thumb, is Fei Long is voiced by Bryan Cranston. Yeah, the dad from Malcolm in the Middle, and the motherfucking Walter White, of course, from Breaking Bad, which I just finally finished watching, and it's easily one of my favorite shows of all time now, officially. But then I watched Better Call Saul right after, and that just took the #1 spot for me. That right there is my favorite show of any genre of all time. Better Call Saul. Love that shit. It was amazing. What an amazing watch. Shout out to Bob Odenkirk for just stealing the show in Breaking Bad and then easily fucking taking lead in Better Call Saul. Great job. But yeah, Bryan Cranston's the voice of Fei Long. He doesn't sound too Fei Long-ish, and this is back in 1994 when I looked it up. Bryan Cranston was still not so young. He was like in his 30s, because he's pretty old now. I was surprised. So he was like in his 30s when he did this. But he sounds so young compared to how he sounded in Breaking Bad. He did play around with his voice a lot, that's true. But even in Malcolm in the Middle, he didn't sound like he does here in this movie. I know also he's supposed to act like he's, you know, a Bruce Lee ass-looking motherfucker from China, so he can't sound like Bryan Cranston. He can't sound like a white man, an Anglo man. He's got to sound like an Asian man who knows his kung fu so much that he's a movie star thanks to it. But that's Bryan Cranston. He does Fei Long. We get a nice long fight between Fei Long and Ryu in the underground fight pit. Ryu makes quick work of the first guy he faces, headbutts him in the nose and smashes it, so we get more blood in animated film. That's always a good fucking thing to have. Fei Long vs. Ryu goes on long enough where it satisfies your urge of getting some justice for Fei Long because, again, I like him. He was one of the more... He was the type of character I liked playing as, but I hated playing against, because if you had a good Fei Long player, then they're just doing the flaming kick. They're just doing like that, like swooping, like jumpy kick, like from the bottom, and just doing that all day. But yeah, it's a long ass fight. He's able to hit his flaming, like spinning kick upwards on Ryu, but Ryu lands, of course. Ryu has to win, so he does, and thank goodness it's actually with the Tatsumatsu Seppuku, the little spinny tornado kick he does, which impossible to pull off in real life. Of course, it's only reduced to an animated form to appreciate it, but imagine someone pulled that out, even got 2 spins out of that shit, in full force and actually, like, aimed properly at you. I wouldn't say that they take your head off, but at least that'd be a solid knockout. And I'd love to fucking see that one day, maybe like an MMA or the UFC, whatever. But man, I don't know. You'd have to be like as light as what, Conor McGregor, or like a light heavyweight or cruiserweight to really pull that off. But then also strong enough to really land a hit. It had to be like the perfect combination of like the butt of the heel of your foot hitting like the edge of the jaw fast enough, 2 spins at most, because if you try going like 4 or 5 rotations, they're gonna catch you midair, probably like bear hug you and slam you on your head, and that's it, and you're a fucking vegetable after that, right? If we're trying to be fancy like Ryu, because you're not Ryu in real life. But yeah, I'm just wondering if that could ever be possible, the Tatsumaki Seppuku in real life. Probably not. Easily defeats him. When he does, it's over. They become friends right after, and then Fei Long's like, oh yeah, you're Ryu, right? You're the guy that beat Sagat. You're a legend, locally, internationally and shit, because that's a big motherfucker you beat single-handedly. I'm barely taller than you are, and you beat his ass like when he's got like a 1.5 foot advantage on you. So good for you, da-da-da. And, you know, sends him off proper, you know, I'll see you later, my friend, pretty much. Ryu's on his own. Ryu's always fucking looking to train harder, Ryu is like the homeless man of your worst nightmares, basically, because he's a trained martial arts expert. He can easily whip your ass if you're his height, maybe even a little taller, and God forbid you're shorter than Ryu, because then you're a fucking small person. You're a short person, whatever they call it nowadays, politically correctly. Make quick work of you. Where he lays his hat or his headband is home, basically. He's always got his fucking travel bag with him. He's got cash somehow. So I don't know, maybe Ryu does give in to fighting in the underground scene to, you know, clean up quickly, make some quick cash and, you know, walking money with him, I guess. It's hard to explain what the deal with Ryu is. Like, his obsession with just always training. Never stop growing in that sense. But that's Ryu. That's his lore, too. We'll worry about that another time. But basically, that's that with Fei Long. Then that jumps over to a fight on a cargo ship between T-Hawk and Ken. We get introduced to Ken, of course. He's got his, I think, girlfriend or fiance implied, Elsa. No, is it Elsa? I forget her name. It might be Elsa. If I'm wrong, you know, feel free to correct me. But then we meet Ken, who's reflecting on his time in training with Ryu in a flashback. And remember, finally, you know, the time apparently Ryu beat him. He wants to get back at him. And ever since then, he's become his own, like, international or, American karate champion. So he's nothing to sneeze at either, Ken. He's a viable threat. Hence why Bison settled with not being able to track down Ryu, because he's a, you know, vagabond, pretty much. and instead went with Ken as far as brainwashing him for psycho power purposes. So we get introduced to Ken. That jumps over back at some point to him versus T-Hawk on a cargo ship. That was pretty cool. Quick, though. Very quick fight. I'd say still proper use of T-Hawk because as gigantic as he is implied in the Street Fighter lore, someone like Ken could beat him because he's faster, more agile, you know, more imposing moves, I guess. And really, T-Hawk only has size and power as an advantage, but basically, he's, like, done immediately. Funny enough, T-Hawk's treated like it should be Mortal Kombat instead of Street Fighter, where he's clearly lost to Ken after a flaming uppercut. He's on his knees and says, finish it. Or finish him, I guess, literally implied, right? So that was a little weird for them to throw that in. I mean, it makes it more dramatic, obviously, but then it's like, well, is that necessary for Street Fighter? Because no one dies in Street Fighter unless you're like Chun-Li's dad who gets thrown off a tower of some sort of heights by Bison, and because Bison feels like it, right? Yeah, T-Hawk loses. Ken's frustrated. He's like, I don't want to fight. I want to fight with refs involved and an audience watching me, not just for your own entertainment and for your own teeth to be collected afterwards because I knocked them all out of your mouth. And he does drop some bars, though. It's the movie has some pretty good dialogue overall. Some of it sounds a little weird, especially Ryu, whoever the actor was, like, had a way of talking like this a lot. Like, he was talking like how, like, the martial art films would dub their shit when they wanted to sell it to the American markets. You know, like, they'd be going, in the movie, all moving all crazy and shit, but they barely get like a hello in the dub version out. Ken does have some lines. He had one that stood out to me that said, no one alive has been good enough to beat me yet, except Ryu. So that shows, you know, as much as they got brotherly love for each other, it's still beef at the end of the day. And, you know, showsmanship and, you know, it's karate. It's martial arts, you know. So I can't blame them for having Ken have some sort of love and fondness for Ryu, obviously, but also at the same time, he wants that rematch and wants to beat him in said rematch, of course, because then he's got his girl to fucking show off for. He wants an audience there present and just for his own pride and pleasure. And Ken is obviously rich because he's driving around like in 2 different cars throughout the whole movie, both of them like drop-top convertibles. First one was a Porsche, and I forget what the other one was, but he's got his way to get around. He believes in this thing called having a car, as opposed to Ryu, who just says, let me just fucking walk in and hike everywhere I can possible. Never-ending saga for Ryu. Ryu ends up in India, where he witnesses Dhalism versus E-Honda going at it, you know, for a local crowd of Indian folks. Dhalism was also, just like Fei Long I mentioned earlier, Dhalism was also one of those I hated fighting against, and I never liked playing as because you had to learn his shit, like how he stretches out his limbs and all that. I forget if he did that here. I think he might have. But more importantly, he had like mind control. He had like the chakras and all that taking over E-Honda at some point. He was about to squeeze him and compress him like a fucking snake in a vice grip. But then he senses, Dhalism, that Ryu's there. He senses a power more powerful than him, so he lets him go immediately. E-Honda recoups. He attacks him right away. He's about to beat his face in. He says, I give up. You win. That's it. I can't do this no longer because there's someone more powerful than me out here. I can sense his aura. I can sense him. I can feel him. That's what Dhalism says, right? That's our intro to Dhalism and E-Honda, which, effective. You know, they hit their moves and shit. E-Honda did his 1,000-hand shit. Ineffectively did nothing. It didn't win the fight, so that doesn't matter. Ryu bumps into a little Indian girl who's like taking milk to her mother out on the streets and knocks over the milk, but does give her money to go buy some more milk. American dollars, I guess, really mattered back then, or she probably bought a cow, or they said, oh, you're giving me this much, you can go fucking milk the cow yourself then. There's a nipple, grab it, pull and tug, and aim it to the bucket, and get as much as you can out of it, basically. But on the child returning to give back the change to Ryu, apparently there was like in what do you call it? Like a Shadowlaw agent, that, but not the cyborg, like an actual human flesh guy that was there, witnessing the whole shit between Dhalism and E Honda. He sends Ryu, I guess, to try to capture him or something. Then he's running off, and he body checks the fucking kid almost into a coma. She's like completely knocked out this time. So 2 times in a row that she's been knocked down by grown-ass men. You know, accidentally, of course, the first time, but then the second time was like, this guy didn't give a shit. He's just plowing through kids if he's got to make a getaway. Only to get shot to death by the driver in the vehicle of which he was trying to get into. So they're both Shadowlaw. Ryu kicks the driver, I guess kills him, it's implied, or, you know, de-arms him, better yet said. There's a guy with a gun going up against him. He takes care of him too. Then get rid of that. And meanwhile, again, as I mentioned, the one agent they had, the human agent they had, is dead, just laying on the side of the road, a dirt road in India. You know, what a way to go out, right? But that's how you roll when you roll with Shadowlaw. That's just what happens. He's getting more insight, more intel on Shadowlaw. He still can't figure out who's who, what's what. Only then, as I mentioned, they realize Ken's a better option. Probably he's more accessible. Probably easier to brainwash because he's got a massive ego anyway, so he probably would want psycho power at the end of the day. Bison grabs his ass, takes him off the fucking road, and throws him in the ship and uses psycho power to control him. Ken officially is now brainwashed. As I mentioned earlier, he's brainwashed naked for some reason. So then we go back to Guile and Chun-Li, setting the differences aside. They go to track down DJ in an undisclosed location. He's just a big black guy that handles himself real well and kicking ass right outside the door of a club because they don't like his type of music, quote unquote. So I guess these guys were picking a fight with him. They were being racist, and DJ just did what comes most logical to those that can handle themselves and handle himself at the expense of these racist motherfuckers. But he did that. Guile pulls up on him and says, listen, just be careful out there. Shadowlaw's looking for guys like you that can handle themselves because they got these modern cyborgs that are copying your every fucking move so they can, you know, make carbon copies of you, go out there and take over the world and shit. And Chun-Li has to prove him right by kicking the head off one of the modern cyborgs that was just like standing there next to him the whole time. Kicks the head off. But by the way, also, this cyborg for some reason had like a Jesus name tag across his jacket. So I don't know if maybe the cyborg had become too intelligent, too aware of itself, where now it's acknowledging God and shit and fearful of Jesus and all that. Or was that just like a jacket it took off of some person, perhaps, killed it and just wore it, and it just happens to have Jesus on it? I don't know. I don't know if cyborgs are capable of believing in God. But wait, cyborgs are like half... Wait, I forget. Is it cyborgs or with the other one, androids? That's like half human, half robot. I forget shit. Well, maybe they could grow their own intelligence and start, you know, praising God or something. I don't know, but that was just a weird detail. And also, there's another one that they can't see that's perched up on a roof that's monitoring all 3 of them and sends a signal back of Guile is linked up with Chun-Li, meaning he's in bed with Interpol to try to bring down Bison. And then there's DJ involved as well. Sends that signal back to Bison in this fucking airship. They're all watching that shit, and the cyborg's running stats on Guile and Chun-Li. Chun-Li is implied to be trained by Bruce Lee because her master's labeled as B. Lee. So there might be that. There might be some of the lore going on there. I'm not too sure. Guile, in comparison, is listed as 6'2", which makes a lot of sense, but probably 6'6" with all that fucking hair on top of his head. Believe me, I'm jealous. And he's also listed as far as his branch of martial arts, what he mastered to become worthy of being labeled and, you know, bunched in as a street fighter. He's a expert martial artist, so master of the martial arts, but they don't say which branch, which type or nothing. It's like he knows all the arts. He's just he's an absolute martial artist, this Guile. Maybe they do teach that in the Air Force. Who knows? Shout out to all the servicemen out there. Oh, yeah. So then as Vega... Sorry, not Vega. Well, actually, yes. Vega and, more importantly, Bison, the boss, are monitoring Chun-Li and Guile interacting with DJ out there. We get the most human aspect of Bison on display in this whole movie, and as far as the character is concerned in general, because he can't help but look Chun-Li up and down from head to toe, and even zoom in on her tits, you know, via the cyborg, of course. That's a courtesy of... It's great to have technology on your side like that. But he's like, tasty and shit. He's like even and all over fucking Chun-Li. Can't blame him because Chun-Li does look great, always has, and looks even more incredible in Street Fighter 6. But he's got Vega at his side, so that's when we get the infamous Vega versus Chun-Li fight in her apartment, with her barely wearing anything because, well, you know, animated movie, they can take those liberties, and, you know, the animators had fun doing that shit, I'm sure, because Vega is then tapped to go and fight Chun-Li. Bison tells him, okay, go have fun with her, you know, you love pretty things. Isn't she pretty? Isn't she fine looking? Go get her ass. Then we go to Las Vegas where we get the proper intro, even though I think we saw him already. Balrog, or, you know, Street Fighter's version of Mike Tyson, of course. They can't even say that. But, yeah. Well, actually, I think that was around the time. Oh, yeah, right. That does make sense because they're alluding to him being Mike Tyson the whole time, but they couldn't use Mike Tyson, obviously. One, because Mike Tyson would probably sue them, and then two, probably because of the allegations at the time against Mike Tyson, where that was the whole reason Mike Tyson's Punch-Out was a one-time thing, and no longer after that, because of the allegations against him, so they dropped him from that whole series. But yeah, we get introduced to Balrog. He's out in Las Vegas, as opposed to his counterpart, I believe, in the movie, or was it the animated series, where he's like an absolute idiot. He's actually fully functional, in charge, and sort of like a boss, I guess, of Bison's in Las Vegas, because he's the one handling the deals. He's the one, you know, dealing with all the guys with money and shit. And he's like the one getting everybody together so they can go down and watch. I'd pay to see this if it was like anything similar to this. A Vegas show of all things that has, in this case, our intro to Zangief. I thought for the longest time Zangief, but, you know, hey, I got corrected on that shit in Street Fighter 6. Zangief versus Blanka, which, if you remember from the live-action movie, Blanka was done terribly. Blanka was mashed into being both Blanka and I think Charlie for some reason. I don't remember why. But it made no sense, obviously, because of fucking live-action Street Fighter. And then Zangief was also kind of easily forgettable in the live-action version. Here, it's short, simple, and sweet, but to the point. Their fight, it's dimly lit, red lighting only, but you get the fucking cyclone pile driver, whatever it's called. You get fucking Blanka doing his fucking cannonball shit, the electric shock. Everything too. It's short, sweet, effective, but it's done so beautifully. It's animated so well, even for 1994 standards, you know, where it looks like a lot of it was hand drawn and then put together afterwards in post-production, but still, it looks great. You know, YouTube that shit, highly recommend it. It's probably, obviously, after the, you know, the Chun-Li fight. All the fights are really good in this movie. Let's get that clear out the way. It's a shame they couldn't do us that. Give us that much in the live-action version, but leave it to the animated version to fucking knock it out the park with every single fight. As short as some of them are, they're all fucking great and memorable and do justice, more importantly, to the cat. Okay, maybe not so much the T-Hawk versus Ken, because Ken really did fucking make light work of T-Hawk. But then T-Hawk is like, is he a favorite character like that, or is he just like a character that was brought out of, you know, proper representation of, like, you know, that community, I guess, right? Not to disrespect, I mean, but I also hated playing against T-Hawk. You know, he was just big for nothing, clunky, and had that stupid, like, bird-esque move that goes up and down and shit. It's easy to spam, all that, you know. I hated playing against him. God forbid anybody that was good as fucking T-Hawk. Now we go to the part where I really question how and why this even got only a PG-13 rating. Well, at least the version I saw on Amazon Prime, where it's free to watch if you got Amazon Prime, by the way, shout out to Amazon Prime. It's weird with PG-13 back when, because now I didn't remember back when, only until I recently watched Titanic again, that Rose shows her tits in a PG-13 film. And it's not like blinking and miss it titties. It's like, you know, full on, you can appreciate it, and damn, she has some nice titties back in 1997 as titties, or 96. Whatever the year was, still. In a PG-13 film, I know the rule is you can get one fuck at most, a couple of shits, and maybe sprinkle in some assholes at most. Unless you want to go into R-rated, territory and then do it that way. But here and I'm sorry to be a perv like that. I'm sorry. I'm guilty of being a man. At 46 minutes in, you get 2 minutes of Chun-Li in her shower scene. And I'm talking about, listen, they're not doing the silhouette shit. They're not just drawing out her figure through like not the steam on the glass or nothing. No. It alludes to that. It's a build-up. It's a whole fucking, it's practically built up like a porn from the 90s, where it's slow cut to fucking outside the glass, cut to her face, washing her hair, scrubbing herself down. They first treat you to the ass in full plain sight, and it's a great animated ass. I'm sorry, I just gotta be honest. And then, of course, it ends up for a good, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It was like a good 4 or 5 seconds of animated tits. And they were big. They were just taking up the whole screen practically. Pink nipples, soft eraser-esque nipples on Chun-Li. So I'm sure whoever drew that, whoever animated that, spent all the time possible making sure they got that part just right, and went over again and again and again, and they probably got their own little stash of like naked Chun-Li only from the Street Fighter animated movie that no one else could ever see because he had too much fun doing it. That leads into the fight with Vega and Chun-Li, where Vega breaks into her apartment in New York City as it's implied. And it's a really great fucking... Is it the longest one? No, I think the last fight is the longest one. But this is one of the longer ones where the music, the soundtrack is perfectly cued to the fight going on. It's intense. It makes it dramatic, serious, bloody, too, because Vega's got the claw, so it makes sense even if it's animated and PG-13. Yeah, you can go crazy with the claw and start, clawing away at her, and she's getting all cut up and sliced and practically dead at the end. But she is able to beat Vega after hitting the spinning bird kick, after fucking, cartwheeling and doing all this shit and flinging a couch at him with barely like a nightie and then panties on. After we've seen her titties, of course, it's little to no ado. But she is able to take him out at the expense of practically dying. Guile's trying to reach her over the phone. He can't get through to her. It's like, God damn it, I thought she was just going to take a quick shower at home, just like these women to fuck around. But then she just dropped the phone during the middle of the fight. She's like, ah! And then he hears that, and he hauls ass over there. He's waiting for the elevator at the lobby while she's getting fucking stabbed to death practically. But she is able to survive long enough for Guile to finally make it up the stairway, kick in the door, the most effective move he's hit in the whole fucking movie, Guile, kicking in the front door of Chun-Li's apartment just to find her practically fucking dead. Because he was too late, and too late to pick up on the fact that she had a distress signal going out there. But then again, who knew that Vega was going to pull up on her randomly in her apartment just like that? It's also cool because she knocks off his mask at some point, steps on his face and turns with her heel and disfigures him pretty much, which is his, main prize, his face. And he says, "You bitch, I'll make you suffer for that," because he ruined he had his face ruined pretty much. Right, so Chun-Li basically kills, I guess we're left to imagine that, because Vega falls out of her building after being drop kicked through a brick wall. So that's already internal damage and bleeding heavily after going through that, and then falling from at least, 5-6 stories on your back, practically dead already. I'm sure it was a pretty easy kill for him, easy death for him. So he suffered slightly, but I think where he suffered most was the effects done to his face at the hands of Chun-Li. So from there, we go on to Bison. As I mentioned already, brainwashed Ken, got him under psycho power control, and takes his ass to meet up with E-Honda, Guile, and Ryu out by some mountainside where E-Honda's at. He took in Ryu as a fucking homie because they're both Japanese. That means they're brothers, according to, his logic, which is cool. And he debuts Ken, now brainwashed and OP'd or I guess Evil Ken, as he's been introduced later on in some games too. I think that Street Fighter 2 update that was released on the Switch like a year or two ago. I can't remember right now exactly. But then Bison apparently talks so much and talks everyone's ear off with all the evil he's gonna fucking bring down upon the world and shit. He's not really talky, but I guess no one in this fucking movie has patience. Not Guile, not E Honda. Because Guile's like, God damn it, what does he say to... Yeah, Guile says, Bison, I'm gonna rip your heart out, you filthy bastard. And then E Honda too calls him a lazy bastard, or no. Yeah, Guile calls him a filthy bastard, but I think Ryu called him a crazy bastard. I forget. I should have wrote it down, but it's just like bastard at the bastard as the bastard. Does Bison have a father that we don't know about, or was he made out of wedlock? Is that his whole point? Is that why he's so evil? I mean, because if you think about it too, I'm a bastard. I was born out of wedlock. That's what it means, right? But back when being labeled a bastard was a thing, or offensive, Betty had said. Nowadays, not so much, because it's much more common to have kids outside of marriage or never be married but have kids anyway. So maybe he's going off. Maybe that's where we got Bison from in the first place. Or he's a short king and a bastard on top of that. He's a short king bastard, this motherfucking Bison. Mad at the world because he's fucking 5'7" at most on a good day, if anything, if he combs his hair up straight. And he has to constantly be reminded of being a bastard. It seems like Guile, grabbed a hold of his fucking file and reports and saw, born out of wedlock, that bastard, I'll get him. He's mine. His ass is mine, like he says beforehand, right? I don't know. Maybe that's Bison's whole MO. Guile calls him a filthy bastard. E Honda is threatening to kill himself, unalive himself, because he can't take it anymore as far as how much Bison is talking. So they all start to fighting. E Honda tries to attack him. He gets, pushed to the side. He runs into balrog, and there's a funny part where he runs into balrog. They're like not even fighting each other, like just tussling back and forth, like rolling on top of each other. And they're rolling down a hill off a mountain. And they both collectively go, oh shit, as they fall off the fucking cliff. That was funny. They don't die. They come back later. But the main focus is, of course, Bison and Guile, until Bison makes really quick work of Guile, embarrasses him. That's why I'm saying the most effective hit that Guile had throughout the whole movie was when he kicked in Chun-Li's apartment door while she was practically dying. So it wasn't like he was going to step in and immediately finish Vega, nothing like that, or even kick Chun-Li's ass if she went rogue. No. He got lucky. He got to put his foot through a wooden door, and then that's as much action as he really got, because again, Bison owns his ass. He's out of the picture. Then we go to Ryu versus Evil Ken. They're doing their thing. Ken's making really easy work of Ryu, but Ryu won't give up. He keeps getting up. He's like all beat up and battered and bloody and shit, but he's still like wanting to fight. And this keeps channeling into Ken's mind, brainwashed or not. Shit, it's Ryu. I can't beat him. And at some point, he just like kind of snaps out of it. He channels his chi. He remembers his master's like learnings and lessons when he was training alongside Ryu. And he's like, oh shit, right, it's me, Ken Masters. I don't need the psycho power shit to beat Ryu, but here we go anyway. We gotta go, handle Bison now. They tag team his ass. Did they hit a? Yeah, I think they hit a double Hadouken on him. Collective Hadouken on him. Practically a spirit bomb. This thing is so fucking huge and taking up the screen like that. And then Bison's out the fucking picture, and that's it for Bison. Ryu and Ken win. E Honda's back and shit. He's alive. He's got Balrog over his shoulders, I believe. And Guile's there too. Guile did absolutely fucking nothing but talked a whole bunch of shit and clearly said, Bison's ass is mine, but then whose ass got owned easily by Bison because he had the teleport power, the psycho power, psycho crusher, all that shit to his advantage. Sure, cheating ass motherfucking that Bison, but guess what? He still lost motherfucking Guile. To who? To Bison, the man's whose ass he said he was gonna own and possess. Pause. Not in that sense, but easily defeated by Bison. Guile's at the picture. At least he got some action. At least he looked just like Guile should in this movie. in comparison to the live action with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I love him so much, but still, he was a terrible fucking choice as a Guile in the live action version. Right, so it's implied that Bison's dead because if you think about with psycho power and all that shit, how could he really be dead? Unless you're like slacking on fucking Bison, which you really shouldn't do, considering he's the head of a terrorist organization. Let's see, then what else? Okay, so then all the good guys are like, you know, applauding each other. Great job, guys. Boom, boom. Let's go back to the good old US of A. Guile breaks the law as he's trying to rush into the hospital to get to Chun-Li to see how she's doing. She's in bad shape. I think he got a call and said, oh, you better show up or something like that. She's dying. Then he starts hauling ass. He starts cutting people off clearly on the highway, driving in the opposite direction on the highway to get to the hospital. So he's being an absolute abusive asshole as far as flexing his like military status in doing so. She plays a prank on him by making it seem like she died. He was too late. He's there at her bedside crying like, I'm sorry I was too late, kid, but we got his ass. He's dead. Not me. I didn't do shit. It was Ryu and Ken that did it. But you know what? I was there too, and I got a couple of swings in. They all missed, but I swear, in my mind, when I retell this story, because you're dead, of course, you can't tell this to anybody, but when I retell the story, I'm going to tell everybody I at least tagged him once on his left cheek, because that only makes sense of my right cheek. If my right fist hit his left cheek, why not? And then she pops back to life. He's fucking furious. He wants to choke her out. Jokingly, of course, afterwards. Chun-Li's okay. She's going to fully recover. Guile's still alive to tell the story. Bison did him that favor. So, you know, be thankful, Guile. And then Ryu and Ken have to say goodbye to each other because Ryu has to fucking wander off, go wherever the fuck he's going. Aimlessly, of course. The most dangerous, homeless vagabond in the world is this fucking Ryu. He's on his path. Ken has to go get picked up by his girlfriend, fiance, whatever they agreed on, because he does say, hey, let's get married. She's like, I don't know, Ken. Which Ken doesn't seem like a bad guy. He's rich, he's blonde, he's a karate expert. He's got nice cars and shit. Why wouldn't you marry into that shit? But maybe there's a side of Ken we don't know about that, you know, was unraveled with psycho power, or that she's been exposed to and that the movie don't dare blemish the reputation of Ken with. But yeah, they go on their separate paths. He's getting picked up by her. Ryu walks off to wherever he's going to next. And then the credits start. But then pleasant surprise, because Bison's not dead after all, because he's chasing after Ryu in a fucking 18-wheeler, and the truck keeps pulling up closer and closer, obviously, towards the screen, just like Ryu is walking towards the screen towards us while the credits are playing, until Ryu senses it. How do you not hear a fucking 18-wheeler pulling up at full speed behind you? Well, no, of course, Bison's not that stupid. He's not going to fucking blare the horn at him. He's just going to fucking speed up on his ass. That's the whole point. Oh, you killed me. You thought wrong. He's the whole 18-wheeler. I can't fucking miss you this time, until Ryu turns around, and then we get a freeze frame of him jumping up in the air, implying he's going to kick the shit out of Bison through the goddamn windshield, and then that could have set up Street Fighter the animated movie too. But according to what I read, I think in the credits or after the movie was done, there was a note of, hey, later on this year in 1994, go check out the live action version of this same movie. So it was in theaters, but I don't think it was in theaters here, probably overseas. I think I read that right. So yeah, I think it was overseas they would do that. At the end of this movie, they promote the live action coming out later in 1994. So yeah, that is Street Fighter, the animated movie, in a nutshell, a very large nutshell, better yet said. What if I was to give this thing a score out of a possible 2 for Street Fighter, the animated movie from back in 1994? If I gotta be totally honest, and I always am, why wouldn't I be? I'd be an asshole otherwise, just like Fei Long. You know, the director said Fei Long was an asshole, at least not me. If I'm going to be honest, I'm going to give this a 1.5 out of 2. I really enjoyed this one. This was a really pleasant surprise. It made me forget, thankfully, easily, of the live-action version, which I haven't watched in years anyway. But I remember it being bad, and I remember it being upset at it because it sucked so hard, and it was a waste of fucking time, and I got slapped in the head as an end result by my mom because she took me to go see it, And she was mad she paid for the tickets and saw it, and I guess it wasn't bloody or crazy or anything like that. But I still got slapped in the head because she didn't enjoy it or she didn't understand shit that was going on. But, you know, if you know speaking English, how's that my fucking fault, Mom? But, yeah, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, 1.5 out of 2 because it was really well animated. It still holds up as far as how it looks, even 30 years later, I'd say. You got to really appreciate the fucking style back then, you know, hand-drawn, maybe some assistance via computer or whatever, but most of it is hand-drawn with love and care, and they respect the shit out of the lore. You know, everybody gets the proper amount of time to shine. Maybe not everyone, you know, T-Hawk, not really, but who cares about T-Hawk like that? Cammy also, but, you know, at least she had the first kill visibly on screen, and then she's, like, out of there afterwards. Yeah, I think they used everybody fairly. You know, Fei Long got way more than he probably should have. Maybe T-Hawk should have gotten a more extended scene, but that's just me saying it. But I'm not complaining how it played out, though. And yeah, this is way better than the fucking live-action version. But this was a really fun watch. And it's one of those where I'm mad I waited so long to finally get to watch this one and therefore enjoy myself fully with it. Honestly, if you've never watched the live action version, you're probably better off skipping it. It's a real disappointment. It's one of those, it is one of those, as far as I can remember, it's so bad it's good, as in it becomes a joke. But it's a shame because it was a really easy IP, at least the animated version was proof of that, to not fuck up like that. But they did. And grandiosely with the live action version. So if you had to pick and choose between the two, if you're not into animation like that, I'd still say, wait a minute, give this one a try. It's worth it. It's got a lot going on for it. PG-13, but somehow they snuck bare ass, titties, and good enough portion of blood to like justify it. But you know, it's not super bloody either. It's not like an animated version of Mortal Kombat either. But it's a good watch. It's a fun watch, and I appreciate that. How well animated it is, how well acted it is. The dialogue might be a little weird sometimes, but it's, you know, maybe not like every other line, but like a line here and there every so often. But it's not bad weird. It's just like, that's kind of weird phrasing, kind of dialogue weird.
Yo, it's over. All right, it's over. It's over. Move the mic. Move the mic.
Thank you.
All right.